The 24 Shades of Blue Cold Case Edition series is about real ongoing homicide investigations. The following conversation may be disturbing to some people and is not recommended for all ages. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to 24 Shades of Blue Cold Case Edition. I'm your host, Andy O'Brien. On Saturday, August 27th, 2016, at approximately 6:12 p.m., Toronto police responded to a shooting on Monroe Street. The victim was 61-year-old Peggy Smith, who was pronounced dead after suffering from gunshot wounds. Peggy was a daughter, mother, and grandmother who was loved and adored by her family. Her daughter Lisa and grandson Jerome spoke to us about who Peggy was in her lifetime.
She was a great mother. She's always been a sweet person, cares about everybody. She grew up actually on the street next to where she was murdered. My grandparents' house was on Hamilton Street. She was a hard and working mom.
Raised you three.
She raised us three. My dad passed away when we were 7. I have to say she was the best mom to us. We never had no complaints about her. All around, she was just a great, loving person. She cared for everybody.
For my early days, just knowing my nan, I just always remember her. She ended up having 13 grandkids, but back then, obviously, it would have been.
And at the time, it was one great-grandchild, but now she has 2. Would have 2 great-grandchildren today.
I just remember she was super caring, and she was always around. It was really never. Even when we were young, I always remember her being around and doing stuff, taking us places, and just being part of the family all the time. And I don't know how she did it, but she was able to divide her time up equally amongst all of us, which was, I still don't know how she did it to this day. Yeah. And nothing but great memories looking back on the things that she did for me and just all the kind gestures. And I just remember a memory that stands out for me is I remember just every Saturday when I first started learning to play hockey down at Moss Park Arena on Sherbourne, she would always be there. And like, this was when I was super small. I wouldn't even be able to carry my hockey bag.
She would help.
And she would, and she must have been, I don't know, probably like 50 or so carrying my hockey bag.
Tiny little petite woman
in the winter
carrying this heavy hockey bag. And
it was always a thing of hers to like make sure that I always had what I needed, especially after the game. It was like a tradition where I would get a hot dog and a Gatorade, and she would always make sure I had that, and then she would come into the room after, and with her Febreze can, I guess that she left in my hockey bag, and she'd be spraying the whole
spraying it all down.
So you knew she was always there every Saturday,
she was our rock. She held the family together. We were close, like me and my sisters, we all lived in that same neighborhood. So like we were a close-knit family. Like she'd visit one house to another because we were all in that same neighborhood. So that was a great thing. She spent every day with us. Like she would make her rounds and she was there for us when we needed her, or even the grandchildren. She was super with the grandchildren.
She came from a pretty big family. She had quite a few siblings.
7 kids in her family that she was raised in. I
guess that's where the family oriented person came
from.
Always being around her own family, and I guess she always wanted to have a big family. I really had a great bond with her. It was like she was a best friend, even though she was my grandmother, but I guess all of our grandmas are our best friend, grandparents.
She was my best friend too. My sister said the same thing. Like
we would, especially in my teenage years, I really got really close with her in terms of just, we would go on like coffee dates and stuff, and we both found that really enjoyable, just going. Her favorite place was Second Cup, so that became a special thing. I would look forward to it, just being able to talk to her, and she'd always listen. Like any problems you had, she was there, and she would always offer her support and any kind of positive feedback to get you through whatever you were going through. And then same thing, it was open two-way street. She would talk to me about things and just things that are bothering her or just things going on in the world. So Our relationship was great. Like I said, she had that relationship with all of us, all the grandkids, her daughters. Like I said, I don't know how she was able to keep that up with all of us, but we all had our own special relationship with her, and she did a really good job at making us feel each special in our own way. And I think that's just one of her characteristics of herself, where she really put others before herself, and she would care for us all the same. And she's the type of person that would give her shirt off her back just to make sure you had a shirt.
Yeah. She'd help anybody out if they asked her if they needed money or whatever. She was there to do that.
My graduation on August 19th or something that month, and we come back. Obviously, she's so happy, super smile. Like,
we had to have a little party gathering for them, and so she said, "No, I'll go home. I'll go get the cake and this and that."
A big part of that after party, just making sure making sure that I felt special.
She went up the laneway and was telling everybody, "My grandson, he's a firefighter now," and like she was just so proud. I mean, was just his pre-getting to do. He wasn't yet there, but he was getting there. But at least she made it to that, to see that he was going forward with it, and she was extremely proud.
So even if it wasn't me that she was parading up the laneway, if she was doing it to anyone, I'd be like, that is so nanny to be. She's just so happy and so proud of if you completed something.
Sitting with me in our studio to discuss the case is Acting Detective Sergeant Steve Smith of Toronto Homicide Unit. How are you, Steve?
Great, Andy. Thanks.
Great. And always glad to have you here and discuss these cases. I think that, they haven't been able to use the platform of the podcast to kind of get a little bit more opportunity to shed some more light, hopefully remind some people of what had transpired. And I guess we'll jump right into Peggy's day. What was Peggy doing on the day of her murder?
So Peggy was a 61-year-old female, and she was living at a retirement residence. She actually wasn't living on Monroe Street. Her family members were living on Monroe at the time, and she went down for the day. It was a nice August day, and she went down to visit them in 2016. Unfortunately, that day, some unknown individuals decided to fire some weapons in the area of where Peggy was standing, and she was struck with a bullet.
So where was the exact location?
It's Monroe Street, south of Dundas. So really the old Don Mount Court area.
Which is Regent Park.
It's just the other side of the Don Valley from Regent Park. So it's basically just, if you go across Girard or Dundas, it's just on the other side of Regent Park, just a little east of Regent Park.
And the events that played out that kind of led to Peggy's death, what do you think they are? Let's kind of set the stage.
Well, at the time, Regent Park was being renovated, so they were tearing down a lot of the residents and rebuilding it as you see it today with a vibrant community. So a lot of the members that had been living over in Regent Park had been moved to other parts of the city, and some had been moved to the housing complex over on Monroe Street. So they were residing there now instead of in the old Regent Park. So that could have been a conflict that led to Peggy's death.
Yeah, because I wanted to kind of set the stage a little bit for those at home, because a lot of things have changed since the murder in terms of where buildings are, where people are now located. So I think it's important for us to kind of set the stage. And I guess the events that played out in the last moments of Peggy's life, what can you set a little bit of that stage for us as well?
So as we said, Regent Park was being renovated. So people had been moved all over the cities, and they'd been residing in different places. So back in the day, you had a number of people that thought the same, that lived in the same areas, protected the same areas, gangs of sort, worked in the areas. Some of these people were moved to Monroe Street. At the time of Peggy's death, she was out on the back patio of her family's residence, and there was people out beside the home where she was at. Those people had come from Regent Park. One of the people is a known gang member from the Regent Park area. At that time, two males walked south along the Don Mount laneway in behind the residence of Monroe Street, and they opened fire on the residence beside Peggy's, and unfortunately Peggy was shot.
And what was some of the evidence that was collected from the scene?
There was about 10 shell casings collected from the scene. Of that, 8 went into the one residence where the known gang member had lived, and 2 went into Peggy's residence. 1 went through the window, and unfortunately 1 actually hit Peggy and killed her.
And were all of these shots from the same individuals, or was there an actual crossfire that can be proved that there was other individuals shooting back?
No, it doesn't look like there was people shooting back. It looks like all the projectiles were from a 9mm weapon that was fired from the laneway towards the homes.
So we're going to take a look at some pictures we have of the scene and discuss them, Steve. The first picture that we're looking at here is the walkway. Can you just discuss a little bit about what we're looking at here in as much description as possible?
This is the rear area of the townhouse on Monroe Street. As you can see, there's a small set of stairs leading up to the main floor of the residence. It's labeled clearly with 61 Unit 4.
Yeah.
There's also a downstairs half sunken basement area that's covered by a fence. There's a patio halfway up the landing and leads into the red brick area of the townhouses of Monroe Street. Once you get down the staircase, you're down into the laneway and the alleyway. You can see where the garbage is put out for the trucks to pick up and such. So that's the laneway that runs in behind Monroe Street.
And do we know how many individuals would have been on the patio? Kind of let's set the stage what this would have looked like during the actual crime.
Yeah, at the time there would have been at least a few of her family members out there. So it's lucky that it's lucky that only 1 person was struck
instead of everybody,
because
10 shots, right?
That's right. With 10 shots, you could have hit everybody that was out there. Obviously, it's horrific that Peggy was struck and killed just enjoying a day with her family, but it could have been much, much worse with that number of bullets that were fired.
We also have a picture of some glasses here. Where were these found and how did they get there?
So from the previous picture, you can see where there's a fall off from the area where they were sitting down to the laneway. So that's down below the staircase, sitting on the ground. So obviously people panicked as the shots fired, whether she was hit and her glasses fell off her face or whether she was trying to flee when she heard the shots and her glasses fell off and fell to the basement area.
Because there was a number of shots, so not sure. I don't think we'll know which shot actually hit Peggy, but they're probably, as soon as you have a couple zinging around their area there was probably some panic that set in.
That's right. I mean, we don't know whether the shots came across and she had panicked, tried to run, lost her glasses, maybe got confused in which way she was going, or tried to grab her glasses. We don't really know the answers to those, but regardless, it's a horrific event, and her glasses ended up on the ground as she was struck with a bullet.
And then we can actually see a picture of a bullet, which looks like in the black railing of the patio. Let's talk about the type of bullet, how many were found, and let's talk about the murder weapon.
There were 10 shell casings found, and they were all 9mm. So it's believed that 1 person was firing from the laneway. 2 individuals were seen in the laneway, but it appears as 1 had pulled out and was firing the weapons. And you can see the sort of destruction that was there. I mean, that's a metal railing, and you see how that's ripped to shreds. So you can just imagine what a bullet like that would do to a human body.
How far was the laneway?
Probably between 20 and 30 feet away from where the shots were fired to where they ended up.
So reasonably close. This was definitely a targeted area.
Absolutely. It's obvious that the person in beside them was a gang member, and it appears as though he may have been the target of these individuals as they walked down the laneway, whether they knew he was there and came looking for him, or whether they just happened to be out in that laneway and happened to see him over a beef that who knows what had happened earlier in the day. So those are questions that we don't have the answers to, because the people in the house beside didn't provide us any assistance.
Nobody at all.
Nobody wanted to talk to us. Nobody wanted to provide us any assistance as to what might have gone on.
Now I want to kind of look at it looks like a bit more of a wider pan of the crime scene. We've got some yellow tape crossing it off. Let's set the stage here in terms of what's happening in this picture.
Yeah, as you can see, the rear laneway, there's cars parked. This is where people would park outside. the townhouses, as you can see, stretch across the length of Monroe Street. What we're looking at is through the back alley on Don Mount Court, and you can see the red brick on the first floor and the siding up on the second floor. So they're decent sized townhouses. You have a basement, you have a main floor where there's walk-ups with the staircases and places for people to sit, and then you have a patio up the top where people can also sit and enjoy the day. And you can see it also how close the houses are. There's small barriers in between the two houses. So anybody that would be targeting someone in one house would definitely take the risk of shooting somebody in the house beside because of the close proximity.
Yeah. And the active gang member that was known to police was just to the left there of the patio.
That's correct.
So was anybody on that side of the patio, or was maybe that person on their patio?
We believe that there was 3 people out on that patio at the time, and that's probably what the shooters had observed. As I said, whether it's that they came looking for this specific person or whether they came down the alleyway and happened to see him from something that had happened earlier in the day, week, month. We're not really sure on that because, as I said, they wouldn't provide us any assistance in the investigation. But these people were standing out here basically where we're looking and firing towards the townhomes.
So somebody, I mean, we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're talking about 12 or 13 windows that have full eye view of this, of the shooters at 6 p.m. at night during the summer. There's light out, 10 shots. Takes a little bit of time to discharge. You're there for a substantial amount of time for someone to see you after you've released a first gunshot. Everybody would look out there. People would look out their window. They would look to see where that bang's coming from, and then to follow up with 9 more. Somebody has to have seen something that may be scared. Is that your take? And these individuals that were on the patio, they haven't mention anything to you guys in terms of possible leads or anything at all?
Yeah, unfortunately, they weren't willing to provide us with any information. And there were a number of people in the neighborhood that did provide us their best descriptions. But I mean, basically, we're 2 males, right? So that's what we are at with our descriptions. There's not a whole lot further to that. People, obviously, when shots are fired, people's first instinct is to protect their own family, which you understand. So whether they gathered, people took a quick look out after once the shot stopped. People did the best that they could in such a stressful situation.
It's really troubling that the individuals that were actually shot at don't see the need to try and protect these families, some that live right beside them, from these individuals who are still at large.
Yeah, you'd hope people would be caring enough to be concerned about other people's lives, especially people that had nothing to do with this lifestyle, nothing to do with anything, and their life was taken for no other reason than they lived beside the wrong person.
Just wrong place, wrong time. And I think what I wanted to do for this season too is talk a little bit more about the individuals that do know something, that because we talked when we were at Homicide last week, and I think we need to talk about what these individuals are actually doing, by withholding information, by trying to maybe protect themselves. What they're doing is, there's a family out there that is hurting from the loss of a loved one, and in particular in this case, that they had nothing to do with, like you said, that type of lifestyle. And B, you're withholding information to potentially save more lives, because this will happen again if it hasn't already. This isn't the first time they aimed a gun at somebody, my guess would be. So what are your thoughts on the people that are holding information?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for us to understand what it must feel like to have someone taken away in that sort of situation where you're out having a family barbecue and all of a sudden one of your family members' lives is taken from you. It's unbelievable to think about. Some of these gang members, this may be more of a common occurrence to them, and they may be a little immune to it, but you are correct. They're adding to they need to come forward and add to the safety of the community. Things happen in people's lives. People grow up, people move on, people move out of the area, they change their lifestyle, they get themselves a job. It's time for people to come forward and say, this is what I know from that time.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I believe there's good in everybody. And at some point, you have to wonder when the good is going to start surfacing for these individuals, withholding information about somebody that died and letting their conscience be free and allowing themselves to actually be a positive contributor to society by getting rid of this garbage off the street who's going to hurt somebody else if they haven't already. And they will continue to do that and also groom younger people to do the same thing, because that's what happens in these types of situations. What do you think it's going to take for somebody to talk to you guys? What do you want to tell these individuals in terms of, what are they actually doing here?
Well, I mean, gangs and gang members are predominantly young males. So as they grow up, you hope that they realize the errors of their ways as they were younger. They move on to either get educated, get a job, get a family.
Life happens.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
That's right. You hope that happens. And I mean, this must wear on people. I mean, if any of us knew the whereabouts or the names of killers, the first thing we'd want to do is get that off our chest. You couldn't live with that. You couldn't go to sleep every night knowing that who killed a 61-year-old grandmother who was there visiting her family for a barbecue and on a summer evening just before the kids are going to go back to school and such. I don't know how someone could live with that and just compartmentalize it and not let it come out. So you would think that at some point these people, for their own good and the good of society, would come forward and let us know what they know.
And I think, we'll dig down a little bit deeper here, even more so to call people out a little bit. And let's really focus on, I've pulled up the address here, and if you want to explain the exact coordinates a little bit more in depth here, and then we're going to talk about who we think specifically may have done this or been involved.
Yeah, so looking at the map, as you can see, so Dundas Street as well as Queen Street and further up Gerrard go across the Don River. So on the left-hand side, off the side of the map, is Regent Park, the old Regent Park, now resurfaced. You've got your Don River and the Don Valley Parkway. You have Dundas and Queen going across both of those over the top of them. And just down between Queen and Dundas is Monroe Street. It runs up further north right up to Gerrard Street. And this used to be the old Don Mount Court area. As you can see, the one alleyway there where people were parked, it's still called Don Mount Court. So that used to be a massive housing complex. Back when I started in the early 90s, there was a big housing complex there, and people used to go back and forth from North Region over to Don Mount Court and back and forth. So that area there it's all been redone. It's all new townhomes, a little older now. I mean, we're 5, 6, 7 years into it, but it was all redone. The housing projects were taken down. Everything there was redone into condos, a mix of condos, housing, co-ops. They redid the entire area. So those were the townhouses that we were looking at in the picture, and that's the alleyway that backs on where the vehicles were parked.
So Steve, we're going to roll into a video that we have here. Let's talk about what we're watching here.
So this is security video from the housing complex. So that's two males walking down the street, and that's the same two males running back north on Don Mount Court towards Dundas. So we believe that those males walked down. They conducted the shooting.
I see another two people, a shadow behind those two individuals.
Yeah, we're not sure who that is. We weren't able to identify who that person is. It's kind of an odd, shadowy figure looking out of the bush area. So there may have been further people with them. They may have had a vehicle up the street. They may have known where the cameras were in the area and parked out of view of the cameras, obviously to avoid being arrested and charged with the murder. So we believe if they did come in a vehicle, that it would be more of a targeted incident than it would be just a random came by and ran into someone. And
so let's talk a little bit more again about the murder weapon. Let's talk about what they were wearing as well in the video. What do you see here?
So it appears that the first male is wearing a gray top with black pants. He has some A hoodie up, the second male as well, gray with dark gray pants, both of them hoodies up, probably pulled tight so you can't see their faces.
Slender,
young males, obviously. I mean, you can see by the way they run, their young males are very fast. They get out of there up the alleyway very quickly to make their escape. And whether they jumped into a waiting car, whether they took off on foot, we weren't able to track them any further with the cameras.
At that time of day, and with that many people that had a visual, somebody, without a doubt in my mind, somebody knows who these guys are. This has spread in terms of people have talked about this, especially being young. We've talked about this. These guys are trying to impress one another. They're trying to, raise up in rank. There's all kinds of things that would drive them to talk to people. People know about this. There's not a doubt in my mind that they do. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I agree, Andy. I mean, especially in the gang culture, these people are going to brag about what they did. They're going to go back and say, I took shots at this person. I did this. It's sort of bravado to them to come out and say, we went over the other gang's territory and we took shots at so-and-so. We went after them. I'm not sure what it would feel like to shoot a 61-year-old woman. I mean, you're down there, you're shooting at another gang member and you hit a random citizen that had nothing to do with your beef or whatever's in your mind that makes you be able to go and shoot another human being, but you've taken someone's family member, someone's grandmother, someone's mother away from them, and that doesn't bother you. You just go on with your day and brag about going to shoot people in other gang territory. To me, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and the other thing that jumps out at me is, first of all, they're unarmed, so you're a tough guy shooting at an unarmed people who aren't firing bullets back at you. There's no strategy behind what you're doing. You're a coward just shooting into a crowd of people that are unarmed. So I don't know what kind of rank anyone was looking to pull, but like you say, you've killed a 61-year-old woman that was unarmed, and you've left her family mourning, and those are grandkids. Those are her kids that are not going to be able to grow up with her in their life. And I think this comes to, like we just discussed, we need to talk to these people and say, something, and it's really important that, the good in you surfaces and you do what's right, because by withholding information from, Toronto Homicide, you're breaking the law essentially. And you're just doing something that's morally wrong.
Even looking at this video, we know that there's two individuals that come down. We know one person's a shooter. So at the very least, the other person knows the identity of the person that pulled the trigger in that. And as you know, these guys they're young, they're bravado, they're going out there bragging that that's them that did this when it's on the news and it's on, they're sending text messages. That was me, blah, blah, blah. So we know that there's a number of people that know who was involved in this shooting. So it's time for someone to come forward, whether it's Crime Stoppers or whoever that they want to call, and let us know who the shooter was in this.
I think the other individual, it's important to point out, because I think a lot of people don't know this. When Homicide find you, you're both going to pick up some heavy charges, whereas you have an opportunity to allow the good in you to come out and do the right thing, and you will pick up a lot less of a charge than when you are found as basically the accomplice to a murder with zero remorse, zero responsibility. By stepping up, you're no different than the shooter in the eyes of the law.
That's right. Do you want to be a witness? Do you want to come forward and provide the truth, and we can work with you on the charges? Or do you want to go down and spend your life in jail as first-degree murder for shooting an innocent grandmother that's just out having a barbecue with her family? That's going into jail. That's not going to be a real badge of honor to go in and say you gunned down a 61-year-old grandmother.
Yeah, hardcore.
As you were shooting at some other gangsters. You're not going to be looked at too favorably.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to reinforce that a little bit more is, let's actually hear. We have a family member with a message to the public and the killers. These are the final remarks that Peggy's family would like to leave the two individuals who took her life on that tragic day.
I just live every day today trying to get through the days. Because like I said, she was like a best friend to me, and she meant the world to all of us. And it did affect all of us. We're all, lost without her. We all have our little depression. Like I said, living day to day is a struggle. It has affected all of us in our own ways. My youngest son was there that day with me and my mother, and it has affected him. It's a day that I'll never forget. I always ask, why her? I don't understand it, but there's so many questions I don't understand. I never got all the answers to. It's just been very difficult to live day to day. Our lives are changed forever. Nothing's the same. It's been very hard.
It's a scar or a wound that I'll always have for the rest of my life, and my whole family will probably have, just knowing how she passed away.
We're just hoping for them to think of their loved ones, think of if it was their family, how hurt that they would be and how they would want to know who did this to their mother, daughter, sister. And, we just want them to just come forward and just speak on it. Even if you're someone that knows something, just come out and let us know. Call 22 tips if you be anonymous. We don't care. We just want her case to be solved, and that we can all, have some closure. I will not bring her back, but at least we can have some closure and she can rest in peace.
I call on you to turn yourselves in. Conscious has to come forward here. What you did was not right. An innocent woman lost her life August 27, 2016 for no reason. And for you to go on living your day-to-day life, knowing what you did, think you got to do the right thing and turn yourselves in. The impact that you've caused on the pain on an entire family and entire community within Toronto. I just want you to do the right thing, and please bring justice to this innocent, amazing grandmother who was murdered for no reason.
What's your message to these individuals?
Those are very powerful words from the family, and they express exactly how we all feel. These individuals need to know that we are working on this case. We've got ways to figure out who they are, and we plan on doing just that. The best opportunity that they have is to come in, tell us what they know, tell us what happened that evening, and we can have honest discussions about where we're going to go from there. But these individuals need to know that we're never going to give up on this case, and eventually there will be a knock on their door, and we will be there to arrest them for the murder of Peggy.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Andy.